There have been numerous great players in the history of football and Arsenal has produced numerous of them. Today, I present to you the 10 greatest Arsenal players in history. Please, make sure you watch this video till the end to know all the greatest players. Thank you. Let's start. Number 10. Pat Jennings. It takes a special talent to transcend the North London rivalry. Pat Jennings was a special talent. The Irish goalkeeper was Tottenham's custodian for 13 years before spending 8 years with Arsenal. Others who have crossed the divide tend to be loved and hated in equal measure, but not Jennings. He can expect a warm welcome whether he strolls around White Hart Lane or Emirates Stadium. The reason is simple. Jennings is one of the finest players ever to pull on a pair of goalkeeping gloves. He won a record 119 caps for Northern Ireland in an international career which spanned 22 years. He played more than 1,000 games at the top level, was named Footballer of the Year in 1973, won 5 major trophies, received an MBE and an OBE and even scored a goal in the 1967 Charity Shield. Calm and assured, Jennings was blessed with a positional sense which meant he barely needed to resort to the spectacular. He was simply in the right place at the right time to pluck crosses out of the air or push shots aside. Jennings was a master of the one-on-one, standing up long enough to narrow the angle and make things as difficult as possible for onrushing strikers. Great goalkeeper, 327 appearances for Arsenal from 1977 to 1984. Number 9. Charlie George. Deep into extra time at the 1971 FA Cup final, with the scores locked at 1-1, Charlie George sent a thunderous 20-yard drive beyond the reach of Ray Clemence in the Liverpool goal. It sealed a first double for Arsenal. The celebration that followed, George fell to the ground with his arms outstretched above his head, is one of the most rousing images in the history of the club. Charlie hailed from deep in the Highbury heartland and had watched Arsenal from the stands as a boy. Like all terrace dwellers who made it at their local club, George was adored by his fellow supporters. His ability helped, of course. George was slightly built and nonchalant, but could carve through defences almost at will. He made his debut against Everton in the opening rubber of the 1969 70th season and notched his first goal against West Bromwich Albion 2 games later. However, ill discipline marred George's first campaign and as a result, he spent 3 months in the reserves. He was reinstated in the spring and, hitting something near his prodigious best, the 19-year-old helped the Gunners to European Fairs Cup glory. The forward got 179 appearances and scored 47 goals from 1969 to 1975. Number 8. Liam Brady. It's hard to stem the flow of superlatives when describing the talent of Liam Brady. Chippy had everything a midfielder could want: skill, vision, balance, strength, a powerful shot and the ability to glide past opponents at will. Like all great players, he always had time on the ball and almost always chose the right option. On a football pitch, Brady's brain and feet worked in perfect harmony. Brady's ability was evident from the moment he joined Arsenal on schoolboy forms in 1970. He turned professional on his 17th birthday in 1973 and Bertie wasted no time in blooding Highbury's most talented teenager. In October of that year, Brady came off the bench to replace Jeff Blockley and make his debut against Birmingham City. In those early days, Brady learned valuable lessons from his first midfield partner, the World Cup winner Alan Ball. And when Ball left, having joined forces with Brady to guide Arsenal away from relegation trouble, Brady assumed the mantle of midfield master. The midfielder was featured in 307 matches and scored 59 goals from 1973 to 1980. Number 7. David Seaman. I still think John Lukic is one of the top 3 keepers in the country. I just think David Seaman is the best. That was George Graham's response to the show of support for Lukic when Arsenal was linked with a highly rated stopper from Queen's Park Rangers in the spring of 1990. We all agree, Lukic is better than Seaman. Rang around Highbury in the months that preceded Graham's swoop, eventually completed that summer. But the Arsenal boss was emphatically proved right. At the time the fee of £1.3 million, a British record for a goalkeeper, was thought excessive by some. In hindsight, it's up there with Ian Wright, Steve Bold, Lee Dixon and Nigel Winterburn as the best money Graham, or any Arsenal manager, has ever spent. Seaman's sustained excellence won over the fans in no time and he became the cornerstone of an Arsenal back 5 which kept 23 clean sheets and conceded just 18 goals en route to the 1990 First League title. Seaman's qualities were manifold. He had sharp reflexes, excellent positional sense, great judgment from crosses and bags of courage. The goalkeeper got 564 appearances from 1990 to 2003. Number 6. Robert Pires. On the day that David Rocastle died, March 31, 2001, Arsenal played bitter rivals Tottenham Hotspur at Highbury. Donning Rocky's number 7 shirt that day was a Frenchman who had flattered to deceive in his opening few months as a gunner. By full-time, though, and with the old enemy once again disposed of, the fans rejoiced in the arrival of Robert Pires. The former Mets man showed guts, passion and creativity worthy of Rocastle, duly breaking the deadlock midway through the second half. He never looked back. The fans had been hurt by Mark Overmars' departure the previous summer, but, thanks to another shrewd bit of transfer dealing from Arsene Wenger, the Dutchman's absence was rarely felt. Pires was a revelation, boasting a playmaker's vision and a striker's instinct in equal measure. His unusual running style was deceptive, as Pires' fleet of foot was vital in the Arsenal machine of the early 2000s. The midfielder scored 84 goals for the Gunners in 307 appearances from 1973 to 1980. Number 5. Patrick Vieira. Another relative unknown arrived at Highbury in late 1996 alongside Arsene Wenger. His name was Patrick Vieira and, together with his new manager, the midfielder went on to reshape the complexion of the club, embarking on a journey to 2 domestic doubles and a historic unbeaten Premier League campaign. The rigours of England's top flight were never going to be an issue for the 6 feet 4 inches Vieira, and his physical stature was as imposing as his powerhouse performances in the heart of Gunners' midfield. Under the tutelage of his compatriot Wenger, Vieira blossomed into one of the world's finest in his position, a remarkable athlete who could both win the ball and distribute it effectively. From 1996 to 2005, the midfielder represented Arsenal 406 times and hit the back of the net 33 times. Number 4. Ian Wright. Some footballers are great goalscorers. Others are scorers of great goals. Ian Wright was both. The Arsenal legend always found a way to find the net, whether it required a sumptuous 30-yard chip or a toe poke from 2 yards. Wright's repertoire of goals made him one of the finest, and most explosive, strikers to grace the English game. And, of course, he was a showman. Wright was a force of nature on and off the pitch, assuming the mantle of practical joker in the dressing room and choreographing a string of theatrical goal celebrations. No wonder Arsenal fans loved Ian Wright. The man himself was late on the scene in football terms. He signed professional terms for Crystal Palace in August 1985, just 3 months short of his 22nd birthday. It seems strange now, but, when he moved to Arsenal in September 1991 for a club record £2.5 million, some questioned the wisdom of the transfer. The midfielder scored 84 goals in 284 appearances from 2000 to 2006. Numbers 3. Tony Adams. 14 years as captain, 669 appearances and 10 major trophies, including league titles in 3 different decades. It's no surprise that Mr. Arsenal himself is regarded as one of the Gunners' greatest ever players. Adams was the ultimate one-club man, a rarity in modern football, and a rock at the heart of Arsenal's defence. He thrived as the leader of the famous back four, developing an instinctive understanding with his centre-back partner Steve Bold and full-backs Lee Dixon and Nigel Winterburn. On an individual level, it's hard to think of a more committed, more gutsy and more inspirational footballer in Arsenal's history. From 1983 to 2002, the defender represented the Gunners 669 times and scored 48 goals. Number 2. Dennis Bergkamp. You could fill a page with a list of outstanding goals scored by him. You could fill 2 pages with a list of the goals that had their genius in his vision. And you could fill a dictionary with a list of superlatives used to describe his 11-year career with Arsenal. Dennis Bergkamp is quite simply a legend of the game. In the last 2 decades, many one-time unknowns have left Highbury with a fearsome reputation and much warranted acclaim. But, in a way, Dennis was an exception. He came, and left, with a world-class caliber. His arrival signalled a daring change in outlook from the men in charge at Arsenal. George Graham had been replaced by Bruce Rioch, and boring Arsenal was to be replaced by something altogether more beautiful. Bergkamp was the catalyst. He scored 120 goals as a forward in 423 appearances from 1995 to 2006. Number 1. Thierry Henry. Remember the kid in the playground who was better than everyone else with a football at his feet? That's what Thierry Henry was like in his pomp. The Frenchman had exquisite technique, a searing pace and surprising strength. And like the typical schoolboy superstar, he did pretty much everything for his team. Henry was the captain, the talisman, the dead ball expert, the penalty taker and the assist maker. Then there are the goals, a club record 228 of them to be precise. And what a portfolio Henry built up during his 8 years at Arsenal. Thumping drives, delicate chips, jinking runs, audacious backheels, even the odd header, the Frenchman had myriad ways to find the net. Everyone has their own Henry highlights, but here are just a few to whet the appetite. That flick up and lob over Fabian Barthez, the slaloming run against Liverpool, the 60-yard surge against Spurs, that cheeky clip against Charlton, that beauty in the Bernabeu and more. Henry is the greatest. He scored 228 goals in 377 appearances. So, what do you think about the greatest players of Arsenal in history? Leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more Arsenal news and updates. Arsenal, the Gunners. Arsenal, the best.